everyone, and welcome back to St.Ation Meets, where we learn more about the societies, organisations and departments at St Andrews. My name is Laura Day, and today I'm joined by Reverend Dr. Donald MacEwan, the University Chaplain. Thank you very much for joining me here this afternoon.
That's great. It's lovely to be with you, Laura.
So could you perhaps begin by introducing the chaplaincy to our viewers and outlining what your role is as chaplain?
I'd be very happy to do that. You've already said my name. It's Donald MacEwan, and I've been the chaplain for 10 years in St Andrews, which is just raced by. I just absolutely love being the chaplain. So I'll give you an idea of what we do. We were really small, but we're there for every student in the university. We just try to enhance your university life. And there are one or two ways we do that. I'll mention them now, and Laura, you might want to ask me more about each of them as we go along. But one thing we do is we're there to meet students one-to-one. When students are just going through something that feels difficult or a tough time in their life, or an issue that they think it would be helpful to talk over. And so you can come and see me or Samantha, who is the assistant chaplain, or one of the other volunteer chaplains. Come and see us in our office. I'm in my office right now. And that is in a building called the Chaplaincy, which is across from the Students' Union. Anyway, I'll say a bit more about that a bit later on if you want. And then other things that Chaplaincy does is we offer worship in beautiful medieval chapels, St Salvator's, St Leonard's, fantastic choir, great visiting speakers. Say more about that down the line if you want. And we support faith societies, so lots of different faiths, from Buddhism to Hindu, Jain, Sikh, lots more as well. We offer support to them and space to them to meet. And we really like interfaith dialogue. So that's it in a nutshell. And I can expand on any of these, Laura, whatever you want.
That's great. You mentioned there the faith societies, and St Andrews is home to a plethora of different ones. There's a full list that can be found on the association webpage. So what can students expect if they were to join one of these groups? Okay,
that's a great question. Each faith society, does its own thing, and it's not one size fits all. But for example, if you were to join Buddhist meditation group, or just come along to one of their sessions, either in person or online, you would maybe hear some teaching from our honorary Buddhist chaplain. You might then go into a guided meditation, which would assume no knowledge and which they try to make you feel comfortable, and then try that and see how that worked for you. In your own practice or whatever you're facing in your life. If you were to join a Jewish society event in person, it would probably involve eating food together, and then maybe conversation or discussion. If you went to a Catholic society event, you might have a talk from a visiting speaker, a priest, a nun, a layperson, and then that might move into the celebration of Mass. So every faith society is different. The key thing about faith societies is that you don't need to belong to that particular faith to go along. All the faith societies are open to people to turn up to events from any background or tradition, find out what's going on, make friends, and so on. If you're here in person in Orientation Week, in Freshers Week, we're going to be running a Freshers Faith Fair on the Thursday, probably from, 12 o'clock or something. And you can come to the chaplaincy building and meet people from all the faith societies, sign up to all their mailing lists, find out about all their events, and choose something that works for you.
That's perfect. And as you said, there is no assumed knowledge, and everybody can join and learn from these groups as well. So the chaplaincy also hosts a variety of events and groups throughout the academic year, such as Grief Group, Hearts of Light, Ministry Discernment Group. So can you talk us through how some of these can offer support to students?
Yeah, definitely. We love small group discussion. It's a great way to make friends. If you're a new student, a great way to make friends is to join a group where there's already a topic that's been decided, and then over an hour and a half, you find you really get to know someone when you're talking about something important. So we have a number of these groups. One is called Thinking Aloud, and it meets every week. Until last year, it met in my house, which is in the middle of town, the chaplain's house, and you find a nice space on a sofa. You might have to move one of our 3 cats before you could find somewhere to sit down. I'd serve you tea and biscuits. And then we talk about issues that are being brainstormed by the people who come. Usually something that's partly to do with faith and partly something to do with society. So examples might be, what about laws on artificial intelligence? How should we think about that? Or what about other religions? What attitude should people of one religion take to other religions? Another question might be, should faiths have a core of beliefs that you have to stick to, or should we have freedom in what we believe? So those are the kind of things we talk about. And there's no right or wrong answer, and I don't come in at the end and tell you what you should believe. So that's called Thinking Aloud, and any student can come to that. And then if you're someone who's maybe thinking about life beyond university and maybe having some kind of a career or even just a voluntary life as a minister, as a priest, or as someone with a big role in church, you might want to come to the ministry discernment group to talk to other students who are thinking about that. And then you might have had sadness in your life. You might have been bereaved. Perhaps someone from your family or a close friend might have died. And actually, you're finding that quite difficult to cope with. We offer a grief group where once a month you can talk with other students facing that in the company of some wise chaplains, not me, but the rest of the team. And that's been really beneficial to a handful of students who have just found it's been the right space for them. That was online last year. So that's just 3 of the groups that we run. I don't quite know what we do, how we find time, but we do. And we're hopeful that these will be in person, but we may have online options too.
That all sounds really interesting, and looks like some really big questions are being discussed in some of those groups as well. You mentioned initially when you were talking about the lovely chapels, and obviously we have several really lovely medieval chapels. And you also mentioned some of the guest speakers. Is there anybody who's going to be coming and giving a talk that you could let us know about?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have a morning chapel service every Sunday from 11 o'clock in St. Salvator's Chapel, and it's almost all students who come. It can be pretty busy first week or two. And then, I don't know, maybe they don't like what I say, or they've already done the pier walk once, so they don't need to come back. But, you know, it stays quite full. And most Sundays we have a visiting preacher. And this year we decided up to the COP26 conference in early November, every preacher would be that we invited was someone who had published or spoken publicly about faith and the environment. So a speaker in late September is Alistair McIntosh, and he has written some really popular books in Scotland about the environment. And his most recent one, Riders Upon the Storm, I think, is a book that looks at the climate crisis we're facing and looks at how small communities around the world have tried to resist these changes and have tried to live different ways, more environmentally sound ways. In the last 3 chapters of that book, he brings his own Quaker spirituality to bear and tries to explore how faith can really influence the way that we respond to the environmental catastrophe that we are facing. So he's a speaker I'm really looking forward to hearing from. We've got someone called Sheen MacDonald coming, and she's a woman of colour who works full-time for Christian Aid in their PR and marketing department. Christian Aid is the church's development and campaigning charity that works outside Britain and Ireland on in poor countries. Their focus has really moved to climate change because the way that climate change and being poor are mutually interwoven, it is a very important subject. So I really want to know what she's going to say about these kind of questions.
That all sounds great. It looks like there's going to be a lot of great speakers, and it's really nice to see how that's coming together with the climate emergency as well. Yeah. So students who are about to embark upon their journey in St Andrews will be feeling every emotion possible right now, with COVID uncertainty also taking its toll. So given this, do you have a piece of advice that you'd like to give to incoming students?
Okay, I've got two pieces of advice. All right. Okay, and the big kind of generic piece of advice is don't worry too much about the future, because it's going to happen anyway, and you cannot plan for what's going to happen in St Andrews. You can a bit, but because of COVID, you can't plan in anything like the detail you normally plan. So don't give yourself a headache planning for things that won't happen. Just see what happens. Just go with the flow. It's had to work that way for me over the past year and a quarter living here. Laura, my hunch is it's had to work that way for you over the last year and a quarter of your degree. And so I think that's the best advice. Come if you can, come when you can, come with an open mind. Don't overplan. All right. But a specific piece of advice is that when you do arrive in St Andrews, you will end up having hundreds of conversations with new people. And if it's anything like when I was an undergraduate in Aberdeen in 1987, you will find out what their name is, where they're from, and what they're studying. Okay, here's a new question. Don't ask someone where they're from. Ask them, where do they think from? What influences them in their view of the world? What films have they watched? What books have they read? What songs have they heard that make them the person they are? Ask them that in Freshers Week. See where it takes you.
Donald MacEwan, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. If you would like to find out more about the chaplaincy and our faiths, you can get in touch via the email address below. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.